fine. Have it your way. Not like I was itching to leave anyway.
You don't want me? Oh, I see. Then I guess I'll stay here and just be sad forever.
What's up guys, Stevie here with Lucky Crit. In Fire Emblem Gaiden, there was a cool Easter egg in the game that the player could discover by choosing to not recruit certain units with Alm on his journey. These units, like Tobin, Kliff, Silk, and others, could then be recruited by Celica on her path by returning to Ram Village and other recruitment locations later to pick them up. While this didn't exactly affect the story in any way or unlock anything hidden in the game, it was just a cool little gimmick allowing the player to switch up their party formations and experiment with some other characters on the different paths. It even gave some players the opportunity to do no recruitment playthroughs of the game, where they recruited as few units to their party as possible. In Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, I'm happy to say that this gimmick returns, albeit in a somewhat more limited fashion. This time around, only Kliff and Faye can be recruited by Celica, and while we do receive support conversations in Echoes between characters, they won't have any conversations at all with characters in Celicas Army because they're not really supposed to be there. Hilariously, or heartbreakingly, depending upon your perspective, Faye can be ditched by Alm, only to be recruited by Celica, the more canon romantic pair for Alm. She's ditched by her one true love, and saved by the very woman who will replace her and take her spot in Alm's eyes. Harsh. So what's the point of this though? Is there some reason why the player may want to leave them behind and get them on Celica's route? Yes, and no. The answer isn't quite so clear. The moment that Celica can come and recruit them is the very end of her first chapter, Chapter 2. Once you reach the mainland near Zofia Castle, simply ignore visiting the castle for a moment and head all the way south back to Ram Village. This allows the player to re-explore old locations with the other protagonist, which does actually affect the dialogue for checking out certain areas and towns. Many players have taken a liking to Alm's mentioning of Sir Per, for example, so be sure to revisit some of these old areas if that sort of thing interests you. But since the first time that Celica can recruit them is at the end of her first chapter, this means that Kliff and Faye will have missed out on both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 within the game's storyline, and will be severely underleveled if you save them for Celica. Their bases are also not good enough to take with you and progress the storyline, so they'll need some investment before you can continue the game. The good news is that you can technically grind them up by visiting the Thieves' Shrine if that sort of thing is your cup of tea, but you'll be missing out on their only support conversations on Alm's path, and they'll be silent members of Celicas Army. The other unfortunate part about saving them for Celica is that Kliff is generally best used as a mage, which Celica already has plenty of, and one of Faye's best options is to be used as a cleric with Physic, which Celica already has in Jenny. In terms of what they bring to the table for Celica though, they'll allow her to have 2 more villagers on her route, which is helpful since the only other villager she'll get access to is Atlas, and this can give her a few more class options to help her round out her party. Faye could provide a decent cavalier, since Celica doesn't have an early game cavalier in her team, or perhaps she could be another Pegasus Knight to help with the numerous desert and poor terrain maps that many of Celica's units will struggle maneuvering through. She could also be a second cleric, allowing for 2 long-range physic users and another healer in general, which may be helpful, but isn't incredibly necessary since Celica herself can heal other units as well. Kliff's a bit trickier. He could also go Cavalier and provide Celica with another early game Cav, or perhaps you'd want another Archer on Celica's side, since the only one you'll be getting by default will be Leon. And as we all know, Faye's not going to be able to become an Archer, so Kliff's the only option for that. You can check out one of the latest videos I made about this if you're wondering why she can't be, yet was one in Fire Emblem Heroes. As a mage, Kliff would be pretty redundant since you'll have Celica, May, Bowie, and potentially Sonya later, so if he wants to be more unique and useful to Celica's army, he'll have to adapt and fill a more niche role here. Obviously Mercenary won't be the best pick either, since Celica already gets a bunch of them as well. Perhaps Soldier could be another option, but you'll already have Valbar as a knight, and that average movement won't be helping you much on some of those tricky terrain maps. Celica recruiting Kliff and Faye will also help her to round out her Chapter 2 cast to a nice even 10 units in her party, which allows you to bring a few more units into dungeons than usual without leaving anyone out either, since you're usually running around with about 8. In order to get to this point in the story though, you'll have had to have beaten just about all of the battles on her path, so dungeon exploring and grinding will probably be the extent of what you can do after recruiting Kliff and Faye at the end of Chapter 2. This is pretty much where the pros end. Ultimately, I'd still recommend you recruit them with Alm so they can fill their better roles and truer purpose on his route, but perhaps this is something you could save for a later playthrough as a cool way to experience the game differently. That's one of the best parts about Fire Emblem Echoes. The sheer amount of replayability with choosing villager classes, picking between units, and now even picking which main character gets Kliff and Faye, will provide the player with numerous playthroughs to experience, and will keep things fresh and interesting throughout. I'm at the beginning of Chapter 3 in my first playthrough, and I sincerely hope that those of you that picked up the game are having a blast. I sure am. And a big thank you to everyone for checking out the videos in this series. It really does mean a lot. To those of you that picked up the game or gave it a shot based upon these videos, hopefully you'll really love your decision to do so. It certainly seems like it from those of you who have let me know in the comments. That's going to wrap up today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to slash the thumbs up if you enjoyed this episode or learned anything new. Comment Echoes in the comment section. And also let me know if you're going to test out recruiting Kliff and Faye with Celica on a future playthrough of Fire Emblem Echoes. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet so you can stay up to date on our content. And for behind the scenes information and news revealed on the fly, follow us on Twitter at Lucky Creek Gaming. And I'll see you all next time.
You know, I guess I don't mind going along. The Deliverance is fighting all across Sophia, right? Well, I've always wanted to...